The Go Radio Business Show with Trywire.com.
Thomas, how are you?
I'm fine, Willie. How are you?
Fine. Well, I was all right until I heard what loads of people had to say about the budget for last week. So I thought we'd kick off this morning now that the dust has settled to see what effect it's had in the various sectors. What do you think?
Well, I've just come this morning. Obviously, we're recording this before Sunday. So I've just come this morning from a board meeting at one of our businesses, and it's going to have to pay an extra £600,000 a year to deal with the minimum wage. And this is a business which is creating a lot of jobs, actually. But they're now looking at, right, how do we deal with this? You know, there's only really one way. You need to put your prices up. But, you know, our customers going to pay the price? So that's a big thing. We are wondering how Scotland is going to deal with business rates. We know what Westminster's doing. We don't know what Scotland's doing until January the 13th. So I hear some horrendous stories about business rates going up, especially in hospitality businesses, again, which is another big employer in Scotland. So these are all the things, Willie, which, you know, on the one hand, the headline looks good. You know, the government's putting up wages for young people and minimum wages, which is, you've got to think is a good thing. But there's only one group of people who are going to pay for it, which is the businesses, and then the customers of those businesses, because prices are going to have to go up, which will not help inflation either.
It's interesting you say that and you talk about inflation. I seen this morning that probably one of the most expensive places in the world to live, Switzerland, and I can talk with experience as my son lives in Geneva, inflation there is running at zero.
It's running at zero, Willie?
Running at zero. So I just wonder, you know, can we learn from anything that they're doing in Switzerland, right, and maybe try and adopt it here in the UK. But I think, yeah, you're right. And talking about, you know, now the dust has settled, I think the hospitality has made their point. And again, the farmers have made their point about the new, you know, the inheritance tax changes come April, which also I'm going to get caught up. And so is it loads of other businesses, not just farmers.
Yeah, lots of family businesses. We talked about it last week, Willie.
Yeah, the only reason we wanted down in London last week is because I've not got tractors. You know what I mean? So if I had a tractor, I might have went down there. Let's wait and see what the next few weeks bring, and let's see, you know, where the budget is going to take us. But obviously, hospitality is screaming out at the moment. This is not good for us. It's interesting. We talk every week about, you know, that we cannot tax ourselves into growth. And there's an interesting report this week from the cities Centre for Cities saying that Glasgow has probably missed out on about 7.3 billion of GDP growth over the last number of years, all because that they believe that it would be better with a kind of mayoral system, you know, going back to the city region. I don't want to use the old Strathclyde, but, you know, using that combined buying power for whatever. I think that it's interesting that Anna Saber's already said, and Labour's already said, that they're all in favour of mayors. Anna Saber has mentioned it for Scotland as well. You've mentioned there's too many small local authorities. You know, what can we do? How can we pull them together, make them bigger, beautiful? And I think that if you've seen John Swinney's speech last week at the State of the City conference, he kind of basically said the exact same thing without using the word mayor, like, you know, giving more powers out.
Right.
What's really interesting in this, they're talking about giving much more powers, more than just fiscal powers. So like the new mayor would have oversight over like parts of what Scottish Enterprise do, parts of what Skills Development Scotland do. And this is interesting because I can talk from, you know, authority here. When the Scottish Enterprise was broken up into the local LECs, the elect companies, I was the chairman of Glasgow, right, way back in 2003, 2004, 2005. And we used to punch above our weight with the money we got, right? You know, so if we get 60 million a year, we'd leverage that in 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. And that local, and we'll put it this way, if it hadn't been for SEG back then, probably the hydro would never have happened.
Wow.
So I think with my experience, I think this can only be a good idea. And to be honest with you, I've never thought that Skills Development Scotland has been better since it took over Career Scotland when we put the two together. I mean, you remember that away back in the day.
We do.
People were surprised that that's where Career Scotland went. So I think I would like all the politicians to explore this a wee bit more, because it would be brilliant if Glasgow had picked up that extra 7.3 billion in growth.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine, but you need to delegate it to the right people. So it's okay saying, okay, we're going to have a mayor, or we're going to delegate authority to this. But it's got to be to the right leaders, Willie. Obviously, you did a good job doing Scottish Enterprise Glasgow, but it's the quality of the people who then take on the ownership of that. If I can just make a point going back to the budget, one of the unintended consequences of all the leaks that were coming out is I've spoken to two people this week who, because of the leaks, there was talk of an exit tax, there was talk of all sorts of stuff. They actually left the country. They actually left before the budget because they were worried, oh my goodness, I'm going to get hit with an exit tax. And now when I phoned them, when they're sitting in their sunnier climes, I'm saying, so you coming back? And they're saying, no. So, that's almost, I mean, that's just not acceptable that, because of a leak, wealth creators have left Britain because of a rumour. I mean, that's not right, Willie.
And the thing about it is, Tom, me and you have been in this game long enough to know, they're all planted. No, it wasn't somebody being mischievous, right?
Yes.
What they do is they put it out there to let you know how bad it could have been, and hopefully what they're going to say is going to be a soft landing. And I think after this budget, they should never, ever, ever leak anything again.
Well, I also spoke to someone, Willie, and I'll be interested in your opinion on this. And I said, right, well, now that I've read the detail of the budget, a lot of the things are being put off to 2028, 2029, 2030. And I said, is that not a little bit silly? Because there'll probably be a Westminster general election by then. And they said, well, Tom, what will happen is hopefully the economy is in better state, and whoever, and they didn't think Rachel Reeves would still be the Chancellor in 2029, but whoever's Chancellor then, just before the election, will say, well, under our stewardship, the economy's got a lot better, therefore we don't need to put in some of these tax rises, therefore vote for us. What do you think of that?
It is all about timing, right? It's all strategic. It's all about timing. But it's interesting you make that point. I was sitting scratching my head when I heard that when we won the election next year, when we talked about the 28 billion going into GB Energy, and how that we'd hoped that this investment, that over the next 7 years, may get us to, in 7 years' time, that people's bills would be down by £300 a year. And I'm like, what happens if you're not running the country then? Right? What's the use of talking about something? What are we doing today? And to be honest with you, we've spoken about it for weeks and weeks. It's today we need to do something, right? So let's just say, this was the growing pains. We had been out of office for so long, we forgot how to govern. We've came in, we've picked up the reins, we know what to do now. It was a big learning curve. Let's hope now, as you say, in the strategy, the timing is, hopefully then the next 2 years, the next 3 years, we'll be demonstrating to the country that we actually do know what we're doing, and hopefully that, that we'll know a lot sooner than having to wait to 2029 or 2030 to see that we're making a difference.
So there was a thing going through, and I think it was held up in the House of Lords. You might have been involved with this. So they were saying in day one of someone getting a job, they get sick pay rights, they get paternity rights, they get unfair dismissal rights. So the unfair dismissal rights have been taken out of the bill. Sick pay and paternity stay. This just makes it harder for companies to employ people in every business's point of view, but at least they've taken one of them out. I think they should take all three of them out. But anyway, if you've got time, you can say to the Prime Minister and the Chancellor that get the sick pay and the paternity pay out as well.
I'll see if I can get that in with the long list of stuff that I've got. Right, I'll try and get it in somewhere. We mentioned last week, it's an interesting story, but we mentioned last week about the nervousness, the rumours that are going about in America. We talked about SoftBank taking all their money out of AI. Have you seen this week that that a lot of British pension funds are withdrawing their money from their big tech investments in the US? Billions.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole valuation thing was ramped up, and we did talk about it. We all felt it was unsustainable, and people are kind of moving with their money now. But I did also watch a interview with Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, and what Bezos was saying was that, yeah, listen, valuations come and valuations go, but AI is going to be more transformative for the world than the internet was. That's in his opinion, Willie. Now, whether you can make money from it or not, he said a lot of companies will go bust, but these companies who come up with the technology, even if they go bust, the technology stays and someone else takes it forward. I thought it was quite an interesting view. He certainly wasn't taking a position on was it a bubble or not. He was just saying it's just going to be so transformative.
So it's funny on that and mentioning Jeff Bezos. I was really surprised this week when I read that there's been a lot of talk. There's a great article in the Financial Times by, is it Martin Wolf?
Martin Wolf, yeah.
Fantastic financial journalist. And he talked about the biggest danger that's going about at the moment is it's called NBFIs, so non-bank financial, intermediaries, he called them. And you can only talk about these huge companies like BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard, which are the three largest, and the grip that they have across all these companies. So I was astounded when I read that BlackRock and State Street own double the amount of shares in Amazon than Jeff Bezos.
Really? Wow.
So he owns 9% and he owns 17%. But here's the thing that gets scary about it, right? You've got these three alleged independent financial powerhouses, right? The two biggest shareholders in BlackRock are Vanguard and State Street. The two biggest shareholders in State Street are Vanguard and BlackRock.
Ah, right.
The two biggest shareholders in State Street is BlackRock and Vanguard.
See, you've got concentration risk, Willie, I would say.
And what they've done, Tom, is they've realised that they're investing in companies that are so big that you only have to own 5% of that company to have a major say. You can be the largest shareholder with 5 or 6% of that company. And it's easy now how people write conspiracy theories. So obviously understanding how big money works, or now we can call them, Tom, the FBFIs, right? The non-bank financial intermediaries, that it's amazing that the stranglehold, right, that some of these big institutions have got, and understanding that they only need to own 5% of a huge company to have a major say or a major sway. So it's interesting to know if they think Bitcoin's good, then we're going to tell you that because we own 16% of ABC and NBC, so we're just going to get programs. It's scary, actually scary. So and I think it's somebody from the European Bank that's put this warning out at the moment that it's so dangerous. I think what they're trying to say is that we talked about long-term capital, and what killed long-term capital was the leverage, right? So they had 2 billion, right? If you think, for the viewers and listeners, here is a group of geniuses, a guy called John Merriweather put these people together, 2 Nobel laureates in Scholes and Black, right? And what they did was they reckoned that they had a formula how to beat the markets. And they started off with a fund, 1.25 billion in it. And in their first month, they raised their fund by 6%. In the second month, they raised it by 27%. In the third month, by 59%. And after 5 months, they'd grown 1.25 billion into 6 billion. And by the end of the year, they'd nearly collapsed the company and nearly collapsed the economy. Right? Geniuses. And as you say, the name of the book is When Genius Failed.
When Genius Failed is a great read, and it keeps your feet firmly planted on the ground.
And the thing about it is what these guys, what Martin Wolf and others are saying today is, the worry that we've got at the moment is nobody's got any idea of the leverage that's going on at the moment with actual cash.
Yeah. So it's one of these things that there's a concentration risk because they've all got shares in each other. Therefore, if one of them takes a bath, they're all going to take a bath. And these things are not disclosable because they're in a non-regulated section of the market, Willie. So I think there is risk there. But hopefully somebody's looking at it.
Hopefully. Changing subjects, getting back nearer to home. I see that Liz Kendall has announced this morning that she's going to put £4 million into R&D to get research done to try and see how we can take costs and build houses more efficiently.
Right, okay.
Liz, here's a wee message for you. Jump on a plane and come up to Glasgow and we'll show you with 4 years of research and actually doing it, how you can address this. Just give me 2 million of the 4, keep 2, right? And we'll show you what you actually need to do. It's all been done.
I've got some good news in that, Willie. Obviously, people at the Scottish Government listen to the show. So I had a call, a Zoom call with the Minister for Public Finance, Ivan McKee. And Ivan's a good guy. He has run a business, one of the few people in the Scottish Government who have. And on the call was the Chief Planner, Dr. Fiona Simpson. And there was a few other people, and they were just saying, Tom, we've heard you talking on the Go Radio Business Show about how we can avert the housing crisis. Remember, Scotland announced the housing emergency in May 24. So it was actually quite a good call. We talked about splitting planning officers' responsibilities because it's the same planning officer who perhaps deals with a home extension, who deals with a 4,000 home development in the same local authority, Willie. So what we talked about was, can we split it so this resource goes into taking care of the bigger housing planning applications to get them through quicker? Because, and there was an acceptance that they are taking too long. I hope I'm not putting words in the Chief Planner's mouth here. But what I also learned, Willie, was there is a lot of developments that do have planning that the developers are not taking forward. And I asked why this was the case, and we didn't quite know. But I've offered to look into this from a developer's point of view. You know, you and I have talked about, over in Winchborough, I'm moving into my 19th year of developing it there, and I've never had a penny out of it. Not one penny of profit has come back to us in 19 years. So Ivan McKee was interested to know the developer's point of view, and I've offered to put a small group, and I'm including you in that, just have a cup of tea and just give Ivan the developer's point of view. So why, if you have planning permission, are you not building? I'm sure that there'll be good reasons for it. But first of all, they wanted the meeting. Second of all, they listened. Third of all, let's see if anything action-wise comes out of it.
Yeah, and I've also been invited next week to go and meet with John Swinney and Kate Forbes of FM and DFM. So look forward to that conversation, and I will keep you posted on that. And I think it's because here's and Ivan and them get it, right? See the party that wins the Scottish elections next year, they're going to win in it on demonstrating to the people they've actually got solutions for some of the problems at the moment. And the three biggest problems at the moment are the housing crisis, which has been declared, the cost of living crisis, and people's anxiety all round about energy. So see if you can come up with a solution for that. Trust me, all of the people will be voting for you.
There will definitely be to vote. And just a wee update as well. I said last week that after our conference, where every leader of the political parties in Scotland came and gave us to a room full of entrepreneurs and wealth creators what they would do in the election, we then asked those people for their ideas, what they would like to see. And Ewan, who runs the Hunter Foundation, is putting it together in an entrepreneur's manifesto. So we'll be coming out with that soon. I think Ewan's going to be calling you, Willie, for a few pointers. So we've had really good feedback on that, and we're going to feed that to all political parties. We're not politically aligned, but this is just what entrepreneurs would like to see from the political parties when we go to the polls in May 2026.
So talking about Ivan McKee, I see that Scottish Government have announced this week that they intend to give councils greater flexibility to design and implement their visitor levies. The Minister has says that the amendment to the Act last year is empowering councils to make better local fundraising decisions. Others, however, see it as the government passed the buck to local councils to raise funds so they don't have to. Well, we've always said, and you'll know this, when you're ever trying to sell anything, the more barriers that you put in front of that, the harder it is. And, to tax people for choosing to come and visit your city or to be in your city, I just think is a big negative. And I say that to UK government as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not for adding another barrier, as you say. I want as many people to come to Scotland as possible, spend their money in the shops and the hospitality sectors and the hotels and have a great time in this wonderful place. So let's see what the local authorities do with that. It's an easy decision to say, oh, let's put another tax on. It's a much harder decision to say, let's have a look at how we're spending our budget so far and let's do it more efficiently. And frankly, it's made more difficult because the current Scottish Government has decided there will be no redundancies in local authorities, etc. So local authorities are fighting with one hand tied behind their back.
Yeah, you're right. And I see as well that the Scottish Government have released its new life sciences strategy, which aims to push the growth of the sector upwards of 25 billion in the next decade, up from the 10 billion presently. The strategy has a reformed cluster body called Life Sciences Scotland Industry Leadership Group. Get your tongue around that, right? And no doubt next week that'll be an acronym, right? At its heart, it's received a kickstart grant of £1 million to get it moving. So I think it's brilliant that you kickstart a fund with £1 million to try and raise another 15 billion in growth. So,
yes.
But anything at all is
good luck to them.
Good luck to them. Good luck to them.
Bit of good news is that Barclays Bank are sponsoring Hampden in a long-term deal. Now we are customers of Barclays. They do a good job for us, and they were telling me that Barclays employ about 7,000 people in Scotland. A lot of them in Glasgow, Willie. So it's nice to see them putting something back into the local economy. They're sponsoring Hampden, and they're also sponsoring the Cups, and it's a long-term deal. So good on them.
Brilliant. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen it today. I've seen an artist's impression of what the Barclays Hampden looks like. I see that, again, that 3 Scottish businesses will share 2.4 million, a fund released by the Offshore Wind Growth Partnership, designed to help in supply chain for the industry scale-up. The 3 businesses are Glasgow-based Airspection, Aberdeen-based Fenex and Innovair. The fund is focusing on helping build a vibrant offshore wind supply chain across the UK, and further rounds of funding will be open in the near future for any listeners in this sector who wish to apply. So you heard it here first. If you're in that sector, there's more money to go after. Get your hat in the ring for a few quid off the government.
Yeah, and hopefully in the new year, Willie, you'll allow guests back on the show, because Sir Jim MacDonald, this is what he understands, and I think we could have a really good show with Jim, and he could tell us about Scottish Enterprise, where he's now the chairman, and he could also tell us about energy prices, because what he was telling me is he believes over the next 3 years energy prices are going to come down. So let's hope he's right.
Here's another bit of great news for Glasgow. They say that proposals have been lodged that could see up to 160 million being invested in Glasgow's Chinatown, turning the area into a cultural destination. This is the top of the town at Cowcaddens. 4.4 acre site in Kincardines, previously home to a shopping and dining complex launched in 1992, but it's since declined significantly. If it's approved, this would be great to reinvigorate a part of the city that definitely needs it.
Yeah, listen, I'm all for that, Willie. So let's hope they get the planning permission through in time.
I think that that area, I used to drive about there quite a bit. You know, it's up near where Partick Thistle's ground is, Tom, and it could do with it. You know, so the north of the site, the great news last week on Cowlairs, not too far away from this site. So these two things put together, you know, you're talking about maybe by the time you build the 1,500 houses at Cowlairs and you do this, you're talking about £1 billion being spent in an area which has certainly suffered from deprivation now the last 10, 15 years. So this can only be great news, especially for the north of the city.
Yeah, and some other good news, Willie, for the city is BAE Systems on the Clyde. So their Glasgow unit are going to take on 144 apprentices, 28 undergraduates and 44 graduates in the coming year. And a fantastic start from that business throughout the UK. Since 2020, they've taken on 10,000 apprentices. Wow.
That is unbelievable. I mean, it's staggering. You know, God knows what Glasgow would have looked like with skilled labour if it wouldn't have been for BAE Systems. So well done. And that's a great note to finish the show with this week.
Great note to finish. So I think we're on next week, Willie, and then we're off on our Christmas holidays. Is that right?
We're on next week, Tom, and we'll know where we'll be going in the World Cup.
Well, we'll look forward to that. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next week on the show.
All the best to the viewers and listeners, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week.